In late 1939, the Royal Air Force had not yet built up its strength enough to fully take on the power of the German Luftwaffe. Due to the manner of aerial fighting that took place, this period went down in history as the Phony War. Nevertheless, the lethal sparring claimed men and planes. A lead force during this time was Squadron 149, who operated out of Mildenhall in Suffolk. On a personal note, this is very near where I grew up. Squadron 149 flew Wellington bombers, and their mission was to destroy a powerful German radar station on Heligoland Bight. This was still the time when the Brits were sending bombers out in broad daylight, a very brave thing to do, especially seeing as the Wellington bombers were vulnerable, with little fighter escort available to protect them, and radio silence being practically a holy commandment. One day, the bombers departed Mildenhall airfield, and those left behind began the long wait for their return, or failure to do so. It's December the 18th, 1939. The squadron strikes in daylight and returns with darkness falling. With it being the shortest days of the year, daylight is in short supply. Out of the 9 bombers that left, 2 returned during the day, having failed to complete their mission due to mechanical problems. The other 7, still out, faced bleak conditions on their return. There is heavy cloud cover with temperatures well below freezing. In the thick gloom, snow begins to fall. Despite the conditions, another Wellington bomber appears just after 5 p.m. 2 more limp home just before nightfall, but there is no sign of the last 4. Wellingtons were known to their crews as wimpies, by the way. The snow thickened, and the minutes passed until the remaining bombers were more than an hour overdue. Now, in order to guide planes back on the ground, crews laid out rows of flare cans filled with paraffin and lit wicks. As the pilots came into land and were ready to reduce power, the ground crew lit a chance light which cast a yellow beam down the runway. The ground crews were waiting all this time to light the flares for the overdue planes, and operations staff now considered calling them in, starting to think the bombers must be down. Reluctant to accept that, he gives them another 30 minutes. Then the ops officer hears something, and so do the others. It's definitely a plane coming directly into Mildenhall. The machine sounds chewed up, the familiar smooth drone of the twin engines replaced by a choking, backfiring cough. It means they are in distress, on the edge of failing. "That ain't no wimpy," a mechanic calls out. "Light the flares," the ops officer shouts. The runway leaps into soft flickering light, with the chance light casting its glow down the strip. As the plane appears, all the men on the ground stop in their tracks, gulping and struck with disbelief. Slowly drifting into the lights is an ancient, fragile mishmash of winged fabric, wires whistling in the wind, bicycle tyres, and the open cockpit of an early First World War FE-2B. They watch it level off and skim the runway. As the plane clatters past, there is no mistaking the helmet, goggles, and a scarf. A gloved hand extends and casts something onto the ground before going to full power and disappearing back into the night with clattering and banging these men had never heard before. When it had gone, they rushed to the object left behind, a wrench with a handwritten note tied to it. Wellington aircraft N2961, code signal OJP, was down. Not shot down over the continent. Turns out, in its struggle to return to base, it became incapable of flight, and the pilot had ditched in the sea 40 miles from the nearest air-sea rescue. The plane was lost, along with the entire crew, as is normally the case when ditching a badly damaged or out-of-fuel bomber at night. So how and why could the clattering FE-2B have appeared over Mildenhall? The men just couldn't explain it. Squadron 149 flies Wellington bombers during the Second World War, but more than 20 years previously, during the Great War, Squadron 149 flew over the airfields of France in FE-2B biplanes.